Relative pronouns. We continue to study English pronouns. In this session, we will get acquainted with relative pronouns. Relative pronouns are used to join two sentences. In other words, they serve to introduce the subordinate clause and to determine the nouns mentioned earlier, whether they are people, places, things, animals, or ideas. And it does not matter whether these nouns are singular, plural, masculine, or feminine. The most commonly used relative pronouns in English are which, that, who, and whom. In some situations, when and where can also perform the functions of relative pronouns. For example, I know a cafe where ice cream is perfect. Relative pronouns are used for that is used for defining information about people, objects, and animals. Which is used for information about objects and animals. Who is used for information about people, sometimes about animals. And whose is used to express belonging, for humans and animals, and very rarely for objects. Remember a few simple rules for usage of relative pronouns that are useful for you in writing. A subordinate sentence is introduced by a relative pronoun, which can be either an object or subject or a possessive pronoun. For example, the sportsman who won the competition trained hard. This is Mick, whose sister went to summer camp with me. When the relative pronoun introduces a subordinate clause with additional non-essential information that can be deleted without changing the meaning, the comma is used to separate. For example, look at the sentence, Mrs. Smith, who is very kind, is my teacher. The subordinate sentence, who is very kind, is additional information, non-essential for determining Mrs. Smith. So the comma is used to separate the subordinate clause. When the relative pronoun introduces a subordinate clause with important information defining the meaning, that is used, and a comma is not used for separation. For example, look at the sentence, the house that Mrs. Smith bought is large. The subordinate sentence that Mrs. Smith bought is important information clearly defining the house. The sentence doesn't make sense without the subordinate clause, and so the comma is not used to separate the subordinate sentence. The relative pronoun whom, in colloquial speech, is very rarely used, but in an official letter, from the grammatical point of view, whom should be used when referring to the object of the sentence. For example, the person, whom I phoned yesterday, is my teacher. Let's check today's topic. Use the correct relative pronoun. What colour is your car? The hotel where we stayed was bad. Which language do you learn, English or Spanish? I need a person who can fix my PC. This is the place where I work. That versus which. The speaking person, from his point of view, determines which information is essential and which is non-essential. So based on this, he or she uses the relevant relative pronoun. Defining subordinate clauses, which are very important for the sentence and not just add to information, are introduced by the pronoun that and are not allocated with commas. Insignificant subordinate clauses with additional insignificant information are usually introduced by the pronouns who, whom, and which, and are separated by a comma. Note in some cases, the pronouns who, which, and whom can introduce defining sentences, which is clearly visible from the context. For example, we don't know the person who donated money. Subordinate, who donated money, is very important for defining a person, and therefore it is not allocated with a comma. It is necessary to carefully use which and that, since their usage can change the meaning. Look at the two sentences, I've bought a new dress, which I will be wearing to the party. Subordinate sentence, which I will be wearing to the party, carries additional, unimportant information, so we use which and separate the clause with a comma. I was wearing the dress that I had bought for that party. Subordinate sentence that I had bought for that party carries determinative, important information, so we use that but don't use a comma. Typical mistakes. Don't use what as a relative pronoun. I speak 2 languages, which helps a lot. Don't use who for determining items and things. I've written the book, which has nice pictures. Don't use that in non-essential subordinate clauses so as not to change the meaning of the statement. Let's look at 2 sentences to understand the difference. My bike, which is red, goes fast. The speaker informs us that the bike is fast, and by the way, it is red. The speaker used which. If we remove the subordinate clause, the meaning bike is fast will remain. My bike goes fast. My bike that is red goes fast. The speaker used that and the meaning has changed. The speaker is talking about a certain bike from a number of bikes, and to point out exactly that the red bike is the fast one. I hope that now you will apply relative pronouns, firmly knowing which one to use in the sentence. As usual, I recommend you practice relative pronouns in your everyday life. It will help you to use them confidently. For example, I have a friend whose motorbike is very expensive. For dinner, I had fish, which is my favourite food. The singer that won Eurovision is very young. And finally, we remember the proverbs. They are very useful. Don't change horses in midstream. Keep on practicing, and don't forget that practice makes perfect.